You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Shoe In Show. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. The voice you're about to hear is not Matt Priest. He did not go up several octaves. That is Sandy Mines, who is joining me today to help co-host this important episode. So Sandy, it's nice to see you. Thanks for joining me, and I think you'll be more and more involved with Shoe In Show, which I'm excited about.
Great. I'm excited too. And I am thrilled to be introducing our guest today, Dave Powers, the president and CEO of Deckers Brands, including Hoka, UGG, Teva, Koolaburra, and Sanuk. Did I get that right, Dave?
Yep. And then a small little startup incubator brand called Deckers Labs that we have been working on during COVID as well.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you on today and hear more about the brands and the growth and sustainability efforts. But first, before we begin, we like to ask people about their shoe story, their personal shoe story. How'd you make it into this industry? I know you have a long history in our market, and I'm excited for having you to share.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you both. I wish we were in person, but I'll take what we can get. Podcasts are a big part of my life these days, and everybody else. But yeah, my shoe story, I would say, quite honestly, it kind of happened by accident. I focused, my career started at the Gap in retail and apparel. And so I have always thought of myself as a retail guy first, a merchant first, and then, product secondary, but the principles of retail and merchandising applied to it. But after I left the Gap, I went and joined Timberland, which was my real first introduction to footwear. And it was great there because there was obviously footwear, apparel, gear, and a whole variety of products to work with. But that's when I really realized the power of footwear from a commercial standpoint. There's so many advantages to footwear around inventory turns and margins and price points and, stock space and just repeat purchases and innovation that don't necessarily apply as well to apparel. Certainly there's, margin opportunities, but footwear is a really unique and ever-changing and exciting space that I'm super blessed to be able to, say I've had a great career in the industry. I've met incredible people and really proud of a lot of the work that, I've been involved in over the years, which is pushing the envelope for what footwear can be, how big it can be, creating white space in the industry, bringing innovation to the marketplace and seeing what that can do. And so I find it incredibly fun and also just an incredibly powerful business to be engaged in. And so I'm blessed and happy to be here, particularly now at Deckers Brands, where, footwear is what we do. And we're all footwear people here. We're trying to evolve into apparel, which is harder than it sounds, quite honestly. Yeah. But what a great space.
That's great. Congratulations to you. You've had incredible growth, amazing stories. I am always really super impressed to see what you guys are working on specifically at the Hoka brand. You guys are on fire, and Wendy, I'm a friend of hers, and I think she does a tremendous job with her team. And UGG too, really great story. You keep surprising us and reinventing and being creative and being courageous. So I really just applaud you on that. You've done a really tremendous job, and your team is awesome. So I just want to say congratulations to you on that. And we just heard that you're just back from Europe. So love to hear what you saw there and what you can share with us.
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate the thoughts on that, Sandy. We take a lot of pride in our entrepreneurial mindset and trying to be disruptive in the industry and always pushing for new ideas and new opportunities. And, what we're going through right now is constantly chasing white space opportunities and creating new categories such as the Fluff Yeah franchise that we built at UGG. And, there's a lot more opportunities to really disrupt the industry that we're excited about. But I will say, yeah, it was great. I was in London and Paris last week with some of the UGG team members, marketing and retail, spent some time with the European team. And I hadn't been in the market in Europe in almost 3 years. And it was exciting. I would say that London is coming back strong. It almost feels like pre-COVID in some ways. Nobody's wearing masks. Retail is strong. And then in Paris, luxury is having a heyday. It's amazing to see how these brands have invested in themselves and how they're really coming to market with such power and creativity and innovation. It's a good reminder that it's a very tough and competitive landscape out there, whether you're on the performance side or the fashion side. We need to be more than just a shoe on a shelf. And so that was the big takeaway for me is, hey, we're amazing at, building footwear and innovative concepts, but we also have to continue to be amazing at how we show up and go to market because the competition is fierce. I think we have incredible brands that, will continue to do really well, but the game has been raised. And so we need to show up in that way.
I particularly want to ask you about, I was just reading through your corporate report the other day on ESG issues, right? And ESG is a big buzzword that's happening now for a number of reasons. But I've always been, especially this year, really impressed with the report about how transparent you guys are trying to be around social justice issues, worker issues, factory issues, also the work that you're doing on environmental issues. And I know you guys have been on this kind of sustainable journey for, I think it's about 10 years now or a little over a decade now. And what I'm always finding really fascinating is that your teams are doing this really innovative stuff and using these new materials and trying to find new ways forward. And you haven't always told that story. And now I'm starting to see it a little bit more. And I'm really excited because the folks you have, the talent that you have is doing amazing work to make, as you say, those things come to life. And I'm wondering just from your perspective in terms of, but I think the challenge for industry is like, how do we not make it a buzzword, ESG? How do we actually dive into social issues and into environmental issues and actually mean it? So from you being the CEO of a company that has these dynamic brands, how do you lead on that? And how do you talk to your team members about that and actually get people to do the real work and not just, market, the buzzwords?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Andy. It's a great question. And I think the end of the day for me, this cannot be a check the box exercise, and I think that's unfortunately, well, let me back up. I would say I'm so pleased to see that the concept of ESG is being embraced and quite, many cases demanded of a corporation. Right. I'm obviously a businessman and a capitalist, but I think it's time for capitalism 2.0, in my opinion, where it's a little bit more democratic and a little bit more accessible to all levels of the population. And I think that, we're very fortunate, and I say this to my, team all the time. We're lucky to be in the position we are, and we have, the opportunity and quite honestly, the obligation to share our success and give back and to our consumers, our employees, our community, the world at large. We're lucky, and we make plenty of money. Our shareholders are happy, and they'll always be happy. But I believe we can always do more. And so for us, ESG is, again, it's exciting that this is now taking hold and it's being demanded, but it has to be core to who you are as a company and what you believe in. And I think for Deckers, we have a culture where people care deeply. And they understand the value and the importance of giving back and sharing our success with others. And we want to bring others along and celebrate, the diversity in the world. And so it's always been part of our DNA and who we are. And, it's who I am and who the leadership team is here. And it's authentic at the company. But, we have an opportunity to lead by example. And so that's why you're seeing a little bit more external communication on the things we're doing. You're seeing our brands communicate with their consumers in a whole different way and in a much more transparent and authentic way. And so we think that this is just the tip of the iceberg. And we want to be a company that, it sounds cliche, but does great in business and does good in the world. And our employees believe that the better we do in business, the more positive impact we can have on the world at large. So it's kind of a flywheel motivator for us, that it's not just about hitting the numbers and, being successful that way. We gauge success on, yes, the business results, but also how we lead by example and how we show up in our communities with our teams.
Yeah. And I would encourage folks out there, if you haven't had a chance, you can go to Decker's website and pull it down. It's 245 pages. And I'm sure poor Brooke spent 6 months of her life trying to get all the teams to get her the numbers and put it on. And God bless her for the work that she does on that. But I'm serious when it does, like the transparency down to the materials, down to what you guys are working on and doing. It's so important to see that it's not, that it does drill down that far, that it is that transparent on the work that you're doing. And I've sent it around to other companies to say, I think you could learn a lot for how you could redo your processes and think about what you're doing based on what you guys are doing in that sense. And I guess my other question around that too is I have this thesis that today's innovation really is about sustainability. It is about trimming down processes and the new material types. And I know you guys have a lab where you have teams that tinker on different things and are doing different things. And you guys are also a huge leader on the digital side. So maybe just want to get your thoughts about how you see sustainability as innovation, and then some of the things your teams are working on, especially, COVID disrupted everything, right? And you guys had already had, digital assets and digital tools you were using. And it seems like you guys just punched through the floor and went hyperdrive in terms of digital, B2B platforms and works, but also, ramped up with the consumer and how you engage. Maybe you can just share a little bit about some of those topics.
Yeah. I think for us, innovation, well, I would say what you have to have an organization that allows innovation to happen. And that means a high comfort level with risk, a high level of empowering employees, and then being nimble. And so we have an organizational structure that allows us to do that. It's not heavily layered, and we really give our employees a lot of leeway to test and learn on the fly. And I'm a huge believer in just keep trying things, trying, new systems or new approaches or innovative materials or, how we go to market. Innovation obviously just isn't product. It's everywhere in the organization and the process. So we're constantly allowing and honestly challenging our employees to think beyond the day-to-day, which is hard because we're so busy, as you can imagine. But it's just that mindset that I think our organization has. We think we have a real entrepreneurial spirit, which comes from our founder way back when, and that's core to who we are. But then you have to give people the freedom to push their or take their thoughts to market or try new things. And I think we're pretty good at that. But as you say, sustainability is absolutely critical for any brand to be successful today. And I'm excited by that, quite honestly. I think we should have a high bar for how we show up in the market. Quite honestly, and I've said this to the teams too, our job is creating waste. I mean, that's what we build. We build product, but ultimately it all ends up as waste. And we have to keep that in mind. And so we constantly have to be thinking about what we can do to reduce that impact on the world, whether it's, carbon emissions or whether it's landfill or whether it's, materials. We're constantly challenging ourselves to push the envelope and reduce our impact. And I think it's healthy for the teams. It's exciting for the teams. It gives them a higher sense of purpose, which is really important.
Yep. And
it means the world to our consumers. And, you mentioned the fact that we haven't spoken much about our sustainability efforts over the years, but I think UGG is an excellent example of a brand that has quietly been doing the right thing,
right,
innovating around materials and, reducing waste and reducing usage. And not many people realize this, but, sheepskin basically is waste. It's a byproduct of the meat industry. And just by creating an UGG product, we are recycling wasted materials. But we can do more than that. So we're transforming our classics to a sugar sole outsole. We've innovated with UGG Pure, which is a woven sheepskin material that is recycled wool and other sustainable yarns. And so the teams now are in a mindset of everything we do has to go through a sustainable lens. And it's not always easy, it's not always cheap, but it has to be considered. And that adds the intrinsic value into the organization and the product. And I think it's going to help us a lot with our sustainability efforts over time.
It's really, it's pretty amazing what you do put into that change report in terms of your transparency, but also your goals and your status. And it makes everyone really accountable. And I think that's really pretty amazing. I don't know how long you've done that for that change report in that granular way, but I loved reading through it, and I thought it was pretty interesting on the material side, but also from your diversity, equity, inclusion efforts and your cultural shifts and changes. And I thought it was a really well laid out report, and I was really impressed with the transparency and also the accountability for it. And I've worked with you and your team for so many years, and some tremendous people on your team do such great work for diversity, equity, inclusion, and women empowerment, and all sorts of different efforts. And I think that's because you're empowering those people to lead in that way, right? But I'd really like to touch on one program that you do that was really quite impressive, the Art of Kindness program that you've just done. I think it's biannual, but I'd love you to share more about that, because I don't think that everybody in our industry knows exactly what that is.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, Sandy. It really means a lot. And I agree, we have some just amazing people at our company who are, Brooke is an example of somebody who is just completely dedicated to what they do, passionate about it. She's authored, the Creating Change report now for a number of years. I'm not exactly sure when the first one was, but we just felt it's important to, again, lead by example, be transparent. And, this ESG and sustainability work is forever going. And so we just felt, hey, let's be transparent where we are today, good and bad, and has that set as the benchmark. So then we just continue to have to improve on it. And I think that approach is resonating externally, obviously, and certainly internally with our employees. So, anybody listening, I would encourage you to go check out the document. It's on our website under responsibility. It is over 200 pages, and it's extremely detailed, but it's by design. And we're really proud of it, and a lot of work goes into that. I think the values that we've created in this philosophy have translated to me and the leadership team saying, how do we give our employees the opportunity to have a personal impact on our efforts and our aspirations to give back? I spent 5 years at Timberland back in the early 2000s, and was fortunate enough to work with Jeffrey Schwartz and Ken Pucker and the leadership team there, and really embrace the idea of giving back and volunteering in the community. And I saw the power of it. I saw the impact it can have on team building and collaboration, and creating an authentic, kind of human-centered culture. And that's always stuck with me. It's always been, something that I really value. And I've had aspirations at Deckers to get to that point. And, over the last 3 years, we've dedicated full-time resources to these areas of our business or our organization. And one of the outcomes was creating a work week, or a week, I should say, less work, where we're encouraging our employees throughout that week to go out and give back and serve in your community. And so we've now just finished our third one. A couple of weeks ago, we supported over 150 organizations globally. We had close to 5,000 hours of volunteer time across our employees. Everywhere from writing letters to children, to visiting hospice, to cleaning up parks, trail maintenance, you name it. And, and so Michelle Apodaca, who works in our team, who's been with the company a long time, and you know her well, Sandy, she's put together an incredible program, organized all the events for people to tap into, logging all the hours, taking all the feedback, documenting it all. And I can tell you, I just read through the employee comments. There was 6 pages of just pure comments for employees, and it's, I had chills and tears in my eyes, reading through it, because people talk about how good it feels to work for a company that allows them to go and serve in their community. And then just talk about, how good it feels to have a personal and positive impact at a small scale, but at least you're helping out and you're doing good. And then also being able to, help manage stress in this environment and get outside, and then work with new people on your team. And once you're in a park and you got a shovel in your hand and you're getting dirty, titles disappear quickly. And it's an amazing experience to be hand in hand and meet new people that you wouldn't necessarily meet because they're not on your team, but now you're bonding over something completely different. And it's just it's a really powerful experience that I'm so excited about our teams embracing it and seeing the impact that we can have on the communities.
Yeah, I was impressed. I was impressed hearing about it, but I really was inspired when I spoke with a few people from your team and some of the employees in the company, and they were talking about being, even a global effort. So it's infectious, and it's a bonding moment, and it's great for, everyone outside of the organization, but I definitely feel like culturally it's important too. And I think that's pretty cool.
I think, in thinking about that too, because I think we have a challenge in our industry, and all industries do right now, around workforce issues, right? Like we see a lot of people shifting and churning across industries because they don't like their jobs. I mean, let's be honest, like if there's not a purpose and they're not passionate, they don't want to do it. And I think sustainability is one of those things where if it's authentic and your social justice programs and diversity, equity, inclusion are authentic, it feeds into your HR positively, meaning you got higher retention rates, you have more productivity, and you have the ability to attract workers. And I think companies that aren't doing it right are having this problem, and it's glaring and it's not discussed enough. But, Dave, you hit it on the head. It's purpose, right? The ability to get out and do that and actually do it authentically matters so much, especially to the younger workers coming into the workforce today. Yeah. And they want that accountability, and they want to work somewhere where it is transparent, and they want to work where they can have a purpose. And too often we just revert back to it's footwear. We're just it's a community. It's our community. It's, so I think in terms of, doing the right thing for the right reasons nets out a multitude of benefits, for the company, and the company's bottom line. I mean, let's be honest, it matters.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really well said, Andy. You're spot on, and it does add to the bottom line because, simple thing like retention rates, our turnover is low, right? And a lot of that is, obviously, we're in Santa Barbara, and certain people don't want to leave Santa Barbara. But so we need to be careful that we're not, having people stay just because they want to stay in Santa Barbara.
Right.
But, we're seeing the culture impact the bottom line. I think you said it well, and it shows up in retention rates and in recruiting rates and employee satisfaction and, across the board. A happier employee, a more authentic and comfortable and safe employee is going to do their best work.
Yeah.
And so we can throw money at people all day long, but it's a buyer's market. If you're an employee right now, you can work anywhere in the world you want. You don't have to necessarily relocate to do it. Wages are higher than they've ever been, which is great, but it's competitive. And for us, we really believe in, the value in making sure that our employees love being here to get their best work out of them and to maintain, the talent that we've worked so hard to build in this company.
I'm not going to ask you about supply chains because I don't want to ruin this conversation because it's so nice. I feel like supply chains are the new 4-letter word. Maybe inflation's also a 4-letter word at this point too. But how do you look out at the landscape right now, the economic landscape in the U.S. and Europe? Like obviously there's huge headwinds, right? Prices are going up. People's pocketbooks are shrinking just a tad bit. It's making it a little bit more competitive for product and choices. But how do you, what's interesting about your company is you've got all these all these product categories in different places, right? So you almost have like this hedging mechanism in some ways.
Yeah, true.
But how do you see the outlook for this year and next year? Is it positive? Is it a little bit slower, but still or maybe you're just going gangbusters because your products are so good and you're connecting in the right ways?
Yeah, it's I was talking to our employees the other day, and we were just reflecting on the fact that, okay, so now we're talking about the war impact.
Right.
It was COVID, right?
Yep.
It was, ESG and DEI and supply chain. And we used to joke, what's next? The apocalypse. Well,
Right.
we're almost talking about that again. So it's kind of mind boggling in that way. And trying to call the ball on what it's going to mean for your business is really hard. But I think the way we're approaching it is just have a nimble and efficient operating model and be able to pivot quickly. And so that has implications on carrying inventory and go-to-market approach and spend. But this is, and has been the last 3 years, a volatile environment where you don't know what's going to happen next. So you have to be ready for anything. And so we're doing a lot of scenario planning. We're maintaining our expenses, but we're also still investing because our brands are super strong right now. Knock on wood, the teams have done an incredible job creating brand heat in this environment, and it's real. In fact, we're chasing demand, and that's a great place to be in, but it's also a frustrating place to be in for our teams because we can't fulfill orders and our service levels aren't what we want them to be. So we're navigating it with optimism, but cautious optimism.
Yeah.
I think, I've been through the 2008 recession at Converse, and everybody was worried about how the brand's going to perform. Well, we had an exceptional year, and by the way, so did UGG that year. So I think heritage brands tend to do well in times of uncertainty, and people go where they're safe and comfortable, and brands they love. And I think we have those type of brands that gives us confidence we'll navigate this well.
That's interesting that I think it's right, investing in that and trying to grow what's known. Because I think when we were in COVID, Sandy, we talked a lot about how brands would navigate this with success because they have a built-in following, right? There's trust there. Yeah. There's loyalty. There's dynamism within those brands. The wholesalers, we were very concerned about just because if they're just importing private label and there's no, and it's just product, it's a harder thing. And I think it kind of ties the two together. We talked a lot about how your employees have a lot of purpose and your brands have a lot of purpose, and it matches those consumers looking for that, right? Like, I think that's the other end of the rainbow when we're talking about this around brands really doing well and wholesale still struggling in this marketplace. So my guess is over the next couple of years, the trend's going to keep continuing, especially, especially if you're investing in those brands
and those brands are surrounded by, being active and running. It's like such a hot category, and being outside and fun, comfortable fashion. Like, you are so in the right zone for this moment. So I think it's interesting that you say that you're open to risk and developing new ideas and nimble as your company grows, so fast and so big. It's like you're still focused on being risky and, empowering people and being creative. And I think that you've earned your position there in saying that it's okay if we make some mistakes. Let's open up a lab. Let's build out this cool new studio that I visited last time I was on the campus of Decker's Brands, and the store that showcases really cool, fresh new product and rotates pretty rapidly. You've done a really good job of that and empowering those people, because everybody on your team and everybody that I have met at Decker's Brands, they're just happy people. They're just excited to be there. They're excited that you're giving them that rein to explore new avenues and take some of those risks where, not every public big company with so many brands that's growing every single day is able to do that. So pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been through in my career with different companies where times are tough, right? And one of the reasons I left the Gap is that the company got scared quite honestly, and questioned, who they were. And next thing you know, you have consultants coming in from McKinsey and et cetera. And it was like, wait a minute, we're a product driven, merchant driven company. When you start bringing in consultants and start trying to unlock a different strategy, that's when I get nervous. And I think when people start to shrink and contract, it's kind of the beginning of the end. And so during adversity, we tend to double down on investment. We shift investments, and we put we put anything extra into the brand, into resources, into innovation. And because I've always felt it's an opportunity to take share. Because if others are contracting and struggling, then this is our opportunity to strike. So we have that mindset we got to stay on the offense, and we got to stay aggressive, and we have to have the organization and the operating, infrastructure to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I have a great story about consultants, and I'm not hating on consultants, but the big guys, I have concerns too. My friend works at Bank of America, and before COVID, they came in and they had a consultancy, and they were like, you need to reform all your offices to hot seat and fit more people in and all that, right? COVID hits, and obviously no one's going in, and no one wants to sit next to each other elbow to elbow anymore. They want offices. So they had the firm come back in, and they were like, who told you to do all this? And like, you did 2 years ago. Like,
different people, different team, right? They come in, they tell you what they think, and then they're gone. So,
man. Dave, I really appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us today and sharing your authentic leadership and your purpose-driven kind of brand structure and the work that you guys are doing. And I do think, that I'm grateful that your teams are willing to share. Honestly, we have, Brooke is a great resource for us. Chris Hillier is a great resource. Mitch Harvey's a great resource. Anders and Jess over at Teva are huge resources, and they've come on the show and participate in our events and help share. And I appreciate that at a time where a lot of people are trying to lock down ideas around sustainability. You guys are actually opening up to share what you've learned to help other people. And I think that matters a lot to our industry. And I just want to personally thank you and your leadership team for allowing that.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the kind words there. And, we're all in it together, and we're competitive, right? Because we're in business and we're, competing with other brands. But at the end of the day, it's one big industry, and there's a lot of good we can do if we work together on it. So I appreciate the compliments. It means a lot to me and the teams. And we're grateful for the work that you guys do as well. So it's one big team. The way I look at it, we're all in this together. I was on a call. I called Andrew. He and I had a call over Andrew Reese, the CEO of Crocs. We just caught up a couple of weeks ago, just chatting. We're competitive, but at the same time, we're in this together. And so that's what I love about the industry. That's what I love about the people here, and excited to continue to do more.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Dave. We really appreciate your time, and it was great catching up with you as well.
Yeah, me too. Thanks. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Enjoy that sunshine while I look outside my window and see the rain in Southern California there. So, folks, this is the Shoe In Show, covering the ins and outs of the footwear industry. This is your podcast. We bring on guests that you want to hear from and that can make a difference. The podcast, as a reminder, was started because we were going to trade shows hearing all this really interesting conversation from executives and workers about the churn the industry was going through. And we wanted to actually broadcast that out and democratize the ideas to help the industry. And that's how this show was born 5 years ago. So thanks to you for listening to Shoe and Show and keeping us the #1 shoe business podcast in the world. We may be the only shoe business podcast in the world, but we're #1 and we're proud of it. You can go to shoeandshow.com and see the entire catalog and hear all the episodes. Again, Dave, thanks for joining us. And Sandy, thanks for co-hosting today. And until next time, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.